We would like to warmly welcome you all to the first webinar of TurboClick Webinar Series 2019. For those of you who are new, TurboClick is the joint working group of TUEVAS and SNGA with GIZ projects working across several countries in Asia. As a cross-sectoral group, we are working on the topics of localizing international agendas, inclusive cities, urban governance, financing urban infrastructure, resilient and low carbon development, capacity development methodologies, among others. The webinar series aims at exchanging experiences and good practices among our members as well as other interested colleagues. This webinar will be about connecting global approaches to regional priorities, connective cities, and integrated implementation of Agenda 2030 in cities and city regions. The goal of this webinar is to present the activities of connective cities, the international community of practice for sustainable urban development, and explore prospects for collaboration, as well as to present the internal GIZ call for ideas for exemplary integrated implementation of 2030 agenda in cities and city regions with a focus on climate change, mitigation or adaptation. So this is how the program runs, and the first presentation will be by Mr. Manfred Poppe on connective cities, prospects for collaboration. Mr. Poppe is the head of project of International Community of Practice, Connective Cities. He started working with GIZ in 1987 in Egypt and has also worked as advisor and head of project in Indonesia. His specialities are urban development, regional planning, decentralization, and good governance. Mr. Poppe has also worked as urban planner in Münster and lecturer at the University of Dortmund. He holds a master in spatial, urban and regional planning and a PhD on decentralized development planning from the University of Dortmund. The second presentation will be by Mr. Tony Katz-Duberke on integrated implementation of Agenda 2030 in cities and city regions, call for ideas for model projects on Cities Challenge 2030 Agenda meets Urban Climate Action. Tony works in the sector project City Regions 2030 as an advisor to the BMZ on urbanization. His areas are metropolitan governance, climate change in urban areas, and digitalization. For 6 years, he has been working for various organizations in 4 different African countries, mostly with a focus on good governance, decentralization, and communal and urban development. He started his career in Bangladesh in 2009, working on municipal development and urban poverty, together with his colleague Catherine Eisenbach, also sector project City Regions 2030. He manages the competition for ideas, Cities Challenge 2030 meets Urban Climate Action, which he will present today. So without much ado, I would now ask Mr. Manfred Poppe and Mr. Tony Katz-Duberke to please proceed with their presentations. Manfred, if you could take over as presenter.
Okay, thank you very much, Vaishali, for the warm words of welcome. Thank you. Hello to all, and thanks for this opportunity to present to you some insights about connective cities. Connective cities as the international community of practice for sustainable urban development. It's a BMZ funded project since 2013 and implemented jointly by the German Association of Cities, by the service agency Communities in One World of Engagement Global. It's another organization belonging to BMZ and in charge of facilitating international intermunicipal cooperation, and GIZ. So we are a tripartite cooperation system set up, and I start with some of the key features. This is we are at the end of our second phase. We have started by mid of 2013. We are looking forward to a third phase, which will start in April this year and lasts for 3 years. And that's for us the overall reason and opportunity to discuss with you some prospects for collaboration. Budgets you can see from the slide. I don't read them out, but what is remarkable that we have in the third phase even more money than previous phases due to the fact that there is a revised scheme of financing where GIZ gets a commission from BMZ and our partner Engagement Global in addition gets a grant, so that we can almost double the budget for operational measures. Just as a quick hint, what are some of the outcomes that we have accomplished to date? We have, as a global network, we have connected almost 2,000 urban practitioners from more than 350 municipalities from about 60 countries in thematic exchanges of experience and peer-to-peer learning and mutual consultations. As we work with the German Association of Cities, there is an emphasis on mobilizing German urban know-how, urban experience. So around 250 German urban practitioners have supported to formulate more than 100 ideas for urban change projects in partner countries of German development cooperation, and also contributed to synergies with existing bilateral programs in the various countries that we are working on. Just as some background information about Connective Cities, Connective Cities is funded from a special title of the BMZ federal budget called IZR. It's translated International Cooperation with Regions for Sustainable Development. And it's used to do some, say, innovative experimental approaches on types of collaboration with multiple actors in close partnerships. Yeah, so at the core of the project is peer-to-peer learning between municipalities. It has its potentials, it has its limitations. We come to that later. Basically, Connective Cities as a program, as a network, as a platform, facilitates joint learning through exchange of know-how among urban practitioners, and we have very specifically defined what is an urban practitioner. Yes, an urban practitioner is someone who is really active in urban development issues. He is from local politics, from administration, from business, academia, and civil society, but usually playing a very practical role. So, for instance, being the head of a department, of an urban planning department, of urban transport department, or head of a division. We don't focus, say, at the level of mayors. So, of course, not neglecting that mayors are important, most important for the political decision making, but our exchange runs between urban practitioners who know exactly how to do a particular job. So what we do, or what we facilitate, are dialogue events, learning programs such as planning workshops, training courses, study tours to mobilize and connect German and international experience together with our two partner organizations. Our events take place in Germany as well as in selected regions or countries and with municipalities throughout the globe. So we think that the discussion of good practices is what enables urban practitioners to learn from one another. And as one of the preconditions to participate in our learning events, we request urban practitioners to come up with a good practice. Yeah? To come up with a good practice that is derived from their daily routine, from their daily work processes, which they can present and share with others based on overall thematic topics that has been defined beforehand. Peers, urban practitioners, they offer advice on practical solutions to address real local urban challenges practitioners are facing. So that's a second request to practitioners to be able to talk about their professional challenges in planning for sustainable urban development. So we also request them, in addition to a good practice, if possible, to come up with a real world challenge, present it to peers, and then get into a peer-to-peer advisory session, which then forms the basis for the next step, which is to formulate innovative project ideas which support local transformation in 4 thematic areas: good local governance, integrated urban development, local economic development, and municipal service delivery. Just a brief glance how we are organized, how the project is being steered. So there is a steering committee with 2 representatives from each partner organization. At the upper level, the steering committee meets 4 to 6 times a year. Then we have a secretariat at the operational level, where we have 3 small teams, 1 in each of the organizations for the day-to-day work. And the secretariat meets on average once a month for very intensive and detailed discussions about work programs, about collaborative arrangements. It also prepares for the session of the steering committee and so on. We have structured the work along 4 thematic clusters. I don't repeat it. And there are regional clusters or regions in which we deliver our networking services. You find 3 of 5 regions you find with a boulder circle. This indicates that in the 3rd phase of Connective Cities, in these 3 regions of Southeastern Europe, South Caucasus, Sub-Saharan Africa, and and the MENA region, the Mediterranean Middle East region, we intend to place a regional network manager. So you see, Asia is not among the 3 regions. Latin America as well is not included in the regions where we are going to place network managers. This is due to some direction we obtained from BMZ. Okay, that was too fast now. I'm trying to move back. Yeah, okay, this is where we have been. Sorry for the... Yeah, this gives some indication about our Asian collaboration partners. You see that from 2016 to 2018, we have altogether collaborated with urban practitioners from 63 municipalities from 11 countries in Asia. This is, I would say, quite impressive. The involvement, of course, has been at various levels. It has been short-term for 1 dialogue event only, but it has also been longer-term in case the learning advances towards the formulation of a very concrete project idea. But that's, if you like, is our non-institutionalized network of municipal partners in Asia. One remark is important. How do we identify those municipalities? There are calls for expression of interest that we run regularly, but our most important interface is with bilateral projects of German development cooperation in Asian partner countries. This is, well, more or less successful, but we have in the past very closely collaborated with CDIA. We have also very closely collaborated with PAKLIM in Indonesia, and other projects who were eager then also to nominate their partner cities or representatives from their partner cities to join in Connective Cities learning processes. And that's for us something to discuss with you, how prospects for collaboration in the future are looking and how we can actually strengthen this collaboration with bilateral projects in the region. Yeah. By one, but important for us is that we are demand-based. So we look at existing projects and topics that these projects are dealing with. We contact urban municipal or municipal associations in partner countries to get their opinion about which topics are relevant for their member country, for their member cities. And we also look at the overall political context to see which are topics that may be suitable to be presented or to be offered for joint learning processes in the region. Yeah. The kind of services that Connective Cities is offering, I have already mentioned this earlier. It's about learning, it's about supporting project ideas, it's about assigning experts for short-term missions to support practitioners on site once a project idea has been defined. It's about virtual cooperation through webinars, through face-to-face consultations via Skype to assist with very specific input as required, and as a new line of service, so to speak, we are offering financial advisory services to municipalities due to the fact that municipalities need finance to implement their projects. So we look at sources of funding and try to facilitate between municipalities applying for funds and the funding organizations. So this, all in all, is the set of services that we are offering. Once again, a closer look at the methodology of our work process or our learning process. It's about dialogue events, it's about project workshops, and it's about projects on the ground. So we facilitate practitioners to present their good practices in dialogue events. The second step is advising on the concrete challenges that practitioners are facing. Then in local project workshops, the development of initial ideas is refined so that at the end there is a very clear concept for a sustainable urban development project, be it in the sector of mobility, be it in the sector of public service delivery, for instance, solid waste management, be it on urban planning methods for managing urban sprawl, etc. We come up with a very simple action planning methodology and start to advise on project financing. However, and this is important to distinguish, implementation of projects is the task of the cities themselves and their stakeholders. So our active role ends once a project has been defined, once an application for finance has been formulated. And this is very important to really distinguish from each other. As a community of practice, we can offer expertise, we can offer advice and know-how, we can offer networking, even long-term among practitioners, but we don't have means, we don't have instruments to actively implement projects on the ground. And this is where I think this type of intermunicipal learning cooperation really distinguishes itself from bilateral collaboration in the countries. As an example, an output that we facilitated during a local planning workshop in Cebu on transit-oriented development of the metro region. This was a workshop attended by more than 30 stakeholders from 13 local governments in the metro region of Cebu. It's about institutional transformation, spatial, social infrastructure transformation in order to improve upon transit-oriented development. of Metro Cebu. At the end, Metro Cebu took over the project, formulated, and for instance, is now working on a feasibility study for the first pedestrian zone in the Philippines. Yeah? So that's how it should work, that the local partner then has, of course, developed ownership for the project idea and is actively pursuing its implementation. So if we take a look ahead, what are the objectives of the third phase starting in April this year? The overall outcome is that urban practitioners and their cities and communities worldwide have developed locally adapted solutions for sustainable urban development by using international expertise. I think there is not much to add to that. So the most important result is, as mentioned earlier, there are locally adapted solutions, in brackets, project ideas for sustainable urban development. Yeah? 3 outputs have been defined. On the one hand, it's about competences of urban practitioners for the design of change process in cities, which have been strengthened. And this is basically what our peer-to-peer learning is aiming at. So at the end, we have better prepared projects, project ideas, which are feasible to be forwarded to funding organizations. Of course, there are figures attached to it. Then in output B, we want to facilitate urban practitioners to actively involve in regional networks. And this is where I had already mentioned 3 out of 5 regions will have a network manager, but we also, of course, work with the other 2 regions, with Asia, with Latin America, maybe in other forms and more through virtual support to have networks established where practitioners can stay in touch, where practitioners can also, in a more informal manner, exchange among themselves with more or less facilitation by Connective Cities. And our third output is dealing with good practices and solutions for sustainable urban development, which are disseminated globally. Towards this end, we already maintain a website which has a data bank on good practices, but we are also aiming to facilitate practitioners, for instance, to join in international processes, international and regional conferences, and present their good practices, their applied solutions in a wider global or regional dialogue format. So that's about how we envisage Connective Cities to work on in terms of outcomes and outputs. And if we look at what a learning process entails, then you find this slide, which provides a more structured learning process, which starts with a call for themes. So on which issues would urban practitioners like to collaborate, to exchange, to learn from each other? Then we get into a dialogue event as the start event for such a learning process, where we physically bring practitioners together. We talk about 30 to 40 participants in such a dialogue event. And ideally, there would be 2 representatives per municipality. So already a small team. So meaning we have between 15 to 20 municipalities, including German municipalities, in such a dialogue event. Then we get, based on the results from the dialogue event in terms of project ideas, we get into local project workshops. Those ideas that have some indication of commitment, of ownership, of technical feasibility would then be subjected to a local planning workshop, where we get into the details, also via an action planning methodology, and where further requirements for advice for support can be defined.
2 minutes.
This is dealt with by expert missions, so we can mobilize experts from Germany, but also via South-South collaboration to advise on site. Then it's the financial advisory that ties in, and there is virtual support. So this is a structured learning cycle, a learning process that we would like to facilitate as Connective Cities. Yeah, we have an expert pool right now. More than 150 German experts are registered in this expert pool. Most of them have some international experience. They are available to support projects of the formulation of projects on site, and we intend to extend this to regional expert pools, meaning from each region, urban experts interested to join in can register. Good practices, I already mentioned, there is a database existing. This will be amended step by step, partly derived from our dialogue events, but also looking at good practices elsewhere. Then we invite for, say, presentation of a good practice together with contact details so that the authors of such a good practice can be contacted by other practitioners. Yeah, last slide. What are the benefits? There is, of course, quicker access to international know-how and to innovations, as well as sound practical experiences about urban transformation processes in municipalities. There is a network among dedicated practitioners with hands-on experience. And I repeat, that's our trademark, practitioners and their experience. The development of individual and institutional capacities for local innovations based on learning concepts, and eventually the implementation of innovative and collaborative projects. Yeah, so this, in a nutshell, what Connective Cities has been dealing with and is planning to deal with. We would be very much interested to get some inputs on, well, topics from an Asian perspective. What is what you would consider worthwhile to concentrate on? As I said, start is April. We are already preparing ourselves and prospective partners, but we are open for any kind of advice, for any kind of input to sharpen our agenda. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Manfred. We will take the discussions a little later. In case you have any questions, you could already put it in the chat box and we could take this over. But for now, I would now request Tony to please take over as presentation and start.
Thank you, Vaishali. Hello, everybody, from my side, from Eschborn. So yeah, as Vaishali introduced me, I'm Tony from the sector project City Regions 2030. So it's a long title, Integrated Implementation of the 2030 Agenda in Cities and City Regions. And I would like to present the latest of our program, which is a call for ideas, or the Cities Challenge. So just, you're probably all familiar with this, but I feel the numbers are always impressive to recall the gravity of the issue here, the mega trend urbanization. So even though cities only cover 2% of the land, yet we find more than half of the world population, it producing almost 3/4 of the global GDP, but also consuming most of the energy, producing most of the waste, and emitting most of the emissions. So these are the numbers for the global situation. I'm pretty sure the percentages are even higher in Asian countries. So, but what's the problem here? So what we see is that success in sustainable development agendas, such as the 2030 agenda, depends after all on how we manage these urbanization processes. Therefore, we are looking for solutions to make it tangible, because the 2030 agenda, in a way, yes, it is comprehensive with its 17 goals, but also in a way it's a bit high level, a bit abstract. So what we are looking for is concrete solutions on how to make it tangible. So we are calling on you, like projects in selected partner countries, I will come later to this, for concrete ideas for model projects. So what we would like to do is engage with programs abroad in so-called model measures, or you could say like kind of pilot projects that you develop together with your partners. And these should be solutions for climate-friendly urban development. So we are looking for small yet concrete solutions and projects that are as concrete as possible, tangible, as I said, scalable. And the idea is how to implement SDGs in urban areas, but not just looking at individual SDGs, but in the spirit of the 2030 agenda to think different SDGs together. And we feel that climate change, both focus on climate change, both mitigation or adaptation in urban areas, is a good, let's say, container for this kind of exercise of thinking SDGs together in its and earning merit to the spirit of the SDGs, so the interconnectedness of them. So we are looking for these model projects that focus on climate change, but also have a focus on women and girls, both as target groups, but also as actors for urban development. And of course, these kind of projects should involve your partners, but even probably new partners. So this could be municipalities, private sector, innovation labs, you name it. So these are kind of the basic criteria, if you like, for our competition. But also consider these kind of more maybe operational criteria. So you should have an appropriate team structure, which we think is between 3 to 5 persons. So not too big the team, but also not too small, including your partner organizations. Your project or your idea should embed in the local reference framework. So let's say it could be national, subnational development plans, but also it could be, if there is 2030 agenda plans or SDG implementation plans, sustainability strategies, and the like. Yeah, of course, we hope for a sound budget proposal from your side. And you could use digital solutions wherever appropriate or useful. So meaning digital solutions for urban development are nice and have a lot of potential, but maybe we don't need a digital solution by force for any project. So whatever you would come up with, a digital element would be nice to have, but not necessary. Of course, we would welcome own contributions, both from your projects, but also from the partners, implementation partners that are involved. And these kind of projects should be implementable, so to say, in a period of 6 to 12 months. Probably it's still a bit abstract, maybe what I said. So just let me try to make it a bit more concrete how it could look like, or what kind of solutions we are looking for. So these are just examples to give you a kind of idea of the spirit of this cities challenge. So what we are looking for is small projects, yet concrete, and that can tell a story about the SDGs and how to implement them together. So for example, these are really just ideas, just to give you the kind of spirit that that is in this cities challenge. So for example, your project idea could be solar lighting for safe bus stops, for example. So the partners you could involve here are the municipality, it could be a local school, it could be the women's group that you develop the project together with. And then the story, for example, would be, okay, gender equality could be fostered by making bus stops safer for women and girls, as there are lighting in the night now. At the same time, you could involve students from the school, provide quality education by educating girls on renewable energy. And as it would be solar lighting, it would be also a concrete climate action through energy savings. So this is just one example. We don't want to give you any, how can I say that, direction, of course. It's just to make it a bit more tangible what we are looking for. So just ideas. Then who are we calling upon, or who can apply? So as we are a sector project, we are calling on other BMZ-funded GIZ projects or also country offices to submit applications. On the individual level, this could mean anyone from national staff, seconded staff, development workers, integrated experts. As I already said, in any case, the proposal should be designed in cooperation with your partner organization. So not necessarily your main partner of your program, but a partner organization to implement this model project. Proposals could be submitted in English, German, Spanish, or French. So we are also, I will come to this shortly, which countries are we have in mind. So I think for the Asian case, maybe English would be appropriate, but also German if you like. So we try to keep the application form rather small. So we expect around a maximum of 2,500 words, outlining, sketching your proposal, and which you would then send to this email address, citieschallenge2030@giz.de, with this title. And we will start the call, the actual call for ideas next Monday, and then there will be 6 weeks time to apply. Important point here is to communicate this with the respective country office, because after all, the country office will play a role, quite a crucial role actually, in handling the funds between Germany and your project. Let's have a look at the quick look on the selected countries for the Cities Challenge. So the green countries here are countries where we call on projects to submit applications. These are countries on the one hand that already have quite a big, let's say, urban and or climate portfolio, and at the same time have been vetted or have been approved by the BMZ regional departments. So for the Asia region, this would be India, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. Now, what can we offer, or also what our role is in this process? Is so we offer between 50 and 100,000 euros per selected measure. I will come to this, what the money could be used for. Also, we can offer technical advice and support in the beginning, but also during the implementation. Also, there will be a slide on this shortly. And then the idea is that from these projects, we learn. You learn, of course, your partners learn, but also the question behind for us is, and also our BMZ department, what can we learn globally? How could we scale these kind of learning experiences, and how can we learn from the results from one pilot? How can we learn from this for the local context, so how it could be scaled maybe to the local context, but also how we could feed it back in as new concepts and approaches within the sectoral departments, so FMB, or also within the regional divisions. And of course, because after all, this exercise is a wish of BMZ. After all, we want to feed back your good examples within BMZ communication in-house, so that our department has good showcases to show, okay, the 2030 agenda after all can only be implemented in and with cities. What the money could be used for, also this is maybe not exhausting, but not an exhausting list, so I will answer your question shortly if we forgot something here, but I think gives you an idea of what could be done with this money. So you could finance consultancies, local consultancies, local travel expenses, smaller construction measures. Just to give you the example of this kind of little. I will take your questions shortly. Thanks for the question, but I will maybe have time after my presentation. Could be for smaller construction measures. I don't know if you think of maybe greening open space or solar lights or something like that. Yeah, digital solutions, as I said, could be or would be nice, so to say, but it's not crucial. It's not necessary. You could also pay for local subsidies. Maybe this would be interesting for the cooperation with your partner organization. However, what would not be fundable, is funding of non-BMZ projects. I'm really sorry for this, but obviously BMZ money or BMZ is not funding, let's say, BMU projects. Also, there can be no double funding. That means the measure you propose should be something extra, not already covered within your existing BMZ contract, if this makes sense. And also what could not be paid would be the salaries of partner organizations, and also with the form of collaboration, financial collaboration that we are looking at, grants and financing agreements also would not be possible. However, local subsidies, as I said, could be an option. Well, beside the money, we offer technical advice. Of course, depending on the scope and content of the individual selected model measures, we will what we are going to offer for sure is at least two virtual check-ins. So these are for networking and peer-to-peer learning among the projects or among the selected model measures, but also it's for us and you to establish a good relationship, and also to see what kind of German or international partner organizations would be interesting to participate to your model measure. But this, of course, it depends on how your proposal looks like and in what direction this is going. Then also we would offer a combination of webinars, so less on the operational points, but more on the content points. Here, same thing. We will look, depending on scope and content, of course, the implementation or the ownership is with you, the selected model measures. However, we can support you with specialists. So let's say you would work on, I don't know, let's keep the solar lighting example. So you work on solar lighting and maybe you need an expert advice of some professor or practitioners from Germany or Europe. So this is what we could look for you then and bring you in touch with somebody like this. And finally, again, quick overview of the timeline. So we are now in beginning of February almost. So for Monday, we will kind of open the call. So we already sent emails to the respective country directors, and now we will call programs officially to submit ideas. So this would be this second green square there, the application phase until 15th of March, as I said. Then when the proposals have arrived, we'll look to them, we'll screen them, and together with other GIZ projects, as well as with the BMZ department, like for urban development, but also with the respective regional divisions, there will be a decision on which will be selected. And then around May, we will announce the winners and get in touch with the selected programs to set up the concept, but also the whole financial administration, so that you could start by mid-June with implementation. Then, as I said, it should be something between 6 and 12 months implementation period, so that we can, by the end of 2019, let's say, maybe hope for first results and start documenting them and disseminating them and see what we could scale from it. Thank you very much for your attention. As I'm giving this presentation the first time, I think we would be very delighted for your questions. If anything was not clear, maybe I explained not well enough, and also your remarks in general to this cities challenge. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Tony. This really sounds very interesting, and I have colleagues here all excited, and there were already some questions from our side. But coming back then, so I have a couple of questions here before I'm sure the others would either put them in the chat or we can take them. So for both presenters, I think Tony made it amply clear that this would be only for BMZ projects, but for Manfred, if you could also throw some ideas on would it be open to BMU projects as well, or it's only BMZ projects?
Yeah.
And then for Tony as well, I think you did explain that it's not only technical advice, but also some material and equipment, but if you would like to elaborate further. So with that, we could start and then we could have more questions.
Mm-hmm. So may I answer the first question, whether it's for BMZ only or for BMU as well. Our target group are urban practitioners, and so far each and every BMU funded project is free to nominate its municipal partners to participate in connective city learning processes. Yeah? So that's for one. And then I need to turn the question around and back to the BMU funded projects. Are you able to contribute the travel cost of one of your nominated participants? Yeah? And so far, from our side, the door is wide open, but we have some rules about shared financing, that projects nominating their municipal partners need to take over the travel costs, meaning to and from the venue. So that's the only condition I think we have for BMU funded projects. Because, again, I repeat, our target group is a municipal expert, the urban practitioner. Regardless which project is behind, which project is on-site facilitating collaboration.
Okay. No, I think that sounds fair enough. The project that is basically looking for cooperation should also be looking at the funding to send the experts.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, sounds good. And Tony, would you want to clarify on the project requirements?
Well, yeah, as I said, well, fortunately, unfortunately, these are BMZ funds, so we cannot fund BMU projects. And on the question of, so your question is relates to this, what the money could be used for, right?
Yes.
Whether technical advice only or also material equipment. I'd say basically material and equipment is also possible. So it doesn't need to be, because the thing is, you know, it would be nice to have something that is concrete, so meaning something tangible that comes out of it, and not just a couple of workshops, so to say. So of course workshops are important to get the discussion started and get the partners on board, but from our point of view, it would be nice if at the end the results would be something concrete and tangible. So therefore, yes, material equipment is something you could the money use for.
Okay, sounds really interesting. So let's see, maybe I'm sure the colleagues here would be putting in some ideas. There's already excitement here, but for the others who are not within the room that I'm sitting in, would there be some other questions?
I have a
Yeah, please.
Am I audible to you? This is Felix from India. I have a question to Manfred. If there's already a rough timeline for this year for planned workshops or webinars or activities from your project?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, we are currently preparing for this third phase, so we don't have an elaborated plan of operation yet. But I can tell you, well, we're looking at, I mean, we will start calls for expression of interest based on thematic analysis from our side early during and even before the second quarter of this year. But say getting our feet on the ground may take up to September, October this year. Yeah, now addressing Asia. Huh? So meaning that a dialogue event could take place in September or October somewhere in Asia, to be defined in brackets, where, based on which topic, again, to be defined, based on various sets of analysis. And when I say September, October for the dialogue event, then remember the circular diagram that I presented. From there on, the process might take, say, 12 to 15 months as a structured learning process, combining various elements such as local planning workshops, which might then take place maybe early next year, expert missions during the course of the year, so that after 12 to 15 months, we might have qualified funding applications which will be directed towards funding institutions. Yeah, so that's the rough timeline that I could elaborate now.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So would there be any other questions then from the other participants? So maybe till other people think about something. So I think from my perspective, it's.
Vishali, could
Yeah, sorry.
Could I maybe address one question to the participants of this session?
Please.
Yeah, because as I said, our thematic focus is based on demand. So theoretically, actually, any urban practitioner could come up with a proposal, then we would screen it and see whether it's feasible for establishing or embarking on a community of practice approach by finding sufficient numbers of supporters. But for that reason, for that demand orientation, I would be very curious to hear a few suggestions for thematic issues. What do you colleagues think is, say, in terms of sustainable urban development, the most, or what are the most pressing needs for Asian municipalities? Of course, I mean, we have our hit lists, but that's not public yet. So I would really appreciate to get some input on that question. What do you consider the most demanding, the most pressing issues to work on through this community of practice approach?
Currently, maybe I could speak for what we are currently doing in India.
Yeah.
We are basically helping the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs design a climate smart city challenge or certification program. They're still to decide whether it's going to be a challenge or a certification process. But the issue of climate and environment and air pollution are currently top of the charts.
Mm-hmm.
But saying that, it doesn't mean that the other issues that were debated till now have really been solved. So depending on the different projects and their purview, different aspects are really there, and each then needs a lot of detailing. So if you look at the other projects, like the transport project, they're struggling with issues of pedestrianization and non-motorized transport and e-mobility, and similarly the SUDSC colleagues have probably some other topics that would be for their core. So it will depend then on the project that basically talks to you and what they're really looking at. So the issues are, umpteened.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that already partly confirms our own assumptions. Huh? But I would just like to seize the opportunity to get some say, real-time feedback.
Yeah, perhaps one further aspect from India is also what we are struggling with is also interconnectivity and integration of different sectors, because we have here different projects focusing on transport, on housing, on sanitation, on climate change, and really to bring the different departments like on the ground also together, to share data and also to blend them together.
Yeah, that is.
This is what we are also looking for in our cities challenge, by the way.
Okay.
For concrete solutions, how you could make different city administration departments work together.
Okay.
Would big data management also be part of your challenge, Tony?
Well, I guess
You're
that's why.
talking about digital issues.
Well, in general, yes, depends on what the big data is about. So if it is somehow connected to climate change, adaptation, or mitigation, please send it over.
Okay. Okay, I'm sure when it comes to urban services, somehow it's either mitigation or adaptation. So, okay, so I think we will get back to you. So you will definitely see from India at least one proposal, if not more.
Perfect.
And maybe same for Manfred. I think we will think about this and probably get back to you on how we can cooperate.
Yeah, I mean, we will certainly also get in touch with you once we have a clearer idea of the time-wise process. Yeah, to then invite for nominations, no, depending on. I mean, one initiative we will be taking in the very near future is approaching national associations of cities, of municipalities, to ask for their input. Yeah. Not by presenting them a bunch of, say, colorful flowers, but by kind of, say, asking for their priorities, no? Based on some empirical analysis about the actual conditions in Asian countries in terms of challenges of sustainable urban development. No? But this will be then also a stage where we would like to get in touch with you again to ask for your input.
Okay, sounds very interesting. The only thing is in India we don't have any national association of municipalities as such, like you have in Germany.
Yeah.
So the it works a little differently here.
Okay, but it might even be sufficient reason to get in dialogue with you to get some further information how this is set up in India. No?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
who, from your, perspective, who we would or should be contacting for some comment on priorities. Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe once you are really clear, then we could actually define for you how we could take this forward.
Very good. Yes.
So if then there are no more questions then coming forward from the other colleagues who are there in the webinar, then I would really like to thank both the presenters for giving us such interesting snapshots into their projects and throwing open these ideas of how we can not only get additional funding but also do some ideation and then proceed further for enhancing all our projects, especially the BMZ projects and maybe also the BMU projects. Thank you so much, Manfred, and thank you so much, Tony. And
well, you're welcome. We are really looking forward to your ideas and proposals.
Yeah, same with us. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I remember 6 years ago, I was one of the founding members of TurboClick.
Oh, yes.
So I'm grateful to see it's still alive and kicking.
Yeah, and it's really nice that your project as well is now in the third phase, so it's equally exhilarating. Thank you so much, and
Thanks to you.
bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Only India was present.